Okay, cool. You should know by now I don't script these videos. All I do is write a title and then we go with it. So, this is basically what getting rich young and then going broke, then getting rich and then going broke actually does to a person, what it does to their identity. And at the end, I hope this actually helps somebody out. If you're in that position where you were making a bunch of money and then all of a sudden everything came crashing down, or maybe you got it again and maybe it all came crashing down again, I've got a lesson here for you, okay? So first, I'm going to explain my story, right? When I was 17, I made my first 12K a month. At 18, I made my first 30 grand consistently, for anywhere from 30 to 50K, doing OnlyFans management, right? Yeah, so I was basically pimping out women, okay? And I never actually disliked it, okay? Internally, yes, it conflicted with me, so I guess that's a contradiction, but I actually loved the dopamine of the high lifestyle, the everything, right? One day I felt convicted by God to leave from it, and I left from it. I listened to that calling. And afterwards, here's the thing. I thought walking with God was going to be so damn easy, like so easy. I thought, oh yeah, because I left all this, God's going to give me riches, God's going to still take care of me, and X, Y, Z is going to happen. No. The month that I left, the 6 months, three to 4 months maybe, the 3 to 4 months after I left were probably one of the hardest times of my life. I had best friends take me to court. I wanted to deny the betrayal. I still love them in my heart wholeheartedly. I still love these people. I don't say, oh, they did me so dirty, they did me so wrong. They don't really know what they did. They were just defending themselves because I was bringing in the bread. These guys were basically, I don't want to labelize them as employees because they were more business partners. And because I was the head of the business, and when I wanted to take it all down, which was taken down so funny, that's a story for another day though. But you know what, I'll tell it right here. So, there was a man, right, that actually, so what we used to do is we also used to work with OnlyFans agency owners. And so we ran an OnlyFans agency and we used to work with OnlyFans agency owners. Now, where these guys would make the money with me was in the whole business, like coaching, like selling coaching to OnlyFans agency owners and helping them post their models on like Reddit and stuff like that. And so there was this guy, his name's Constantine. If you know the Emperor of Rome, one of the emperors of Rome, Constantine, he actually brought Christianity to Rome. Now, I don't know if he was an actual Christian himself. You can read about him yourself in your own due diligence, in your own time. I'm not going to tell you the life story of Constantine. But basically, it's funny how his name was Constantine, and Constantine, alright, you get the point, right? Anyways, he actually ended up giving us a scammer accusation. Now, I remember I had the emails changed on me, to the YouTube channel, to all of the stuff that was like teaching people how to manage OF girls and stuff like that. Now, this is obviously doing a lot of harm to the world, right? It's causing a lot of sin towards men who are in lust. It's feeding that cycle. And I wanted it all taken down, but I felt like I couldn't do anything about it, right? And so I was praying, I was sitting there, I was like, God, just take it all down, strip it away, X, Y, Z. The very next day, Mr. Constantine came out with a scammer accusation against our coaching brand, which they still had control over, which they were still trying to sell people on coaching towards that. And I loved it because this scammer accusation made everybody in the OnlyFans industry absolutely hate the brand that we were coaching from. And so he took it all down. But where was I going with that? Right. So, anyways, hardest time of my life, basically. Had a lot of things happen to me straight after. Obviously, you can call it karma, you can call it whatever, whatever, right? The point is that I was banking in money at a very young age. And all of a sudden, I just went bang. We went homeless in his car, basically. Now, we still had the lease in our high-rise apartment, me and my other business partners. I didn't want to get rid of the lease because I wanted to stay there, right? And so I'm like, okay, we'll take a step back. So for like 2 weeks straight, we were just chilling in the back of his car, working on our new businesses, all that stuff. And then time got to it. They basically took me to court, which I'm still battling. Next court case is in July. I'm actually thinking of pleading guilty because it's just my ego wanting to verse it. Like, I just want to win. And so I think the only thing to, like diminish and kill that ego a little bit is by just pleading guilty when I don't want to. Even though I've got a nice case, I'm not going to speak too much on it, but I've got a nice case. Okay. Anyways, won't speak on that because I don't want to get in legal trouble or anything like that. You know what I mean? But anyways, me and my mate, homeless in his car, working. Now, with the court case against me, he used that to basically take his name off the lease. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything like that, but that's what happened, right? So he took his name off the lease. He couldn't afford it. Neither could we. We couldn't afford it either, okay? But then, now I've got this $2,600 a month lease that I have to pay. I've got no income. I'm working a business with my mate. And now I'm in the middle. I want to call this the middle. Because we weren't rich and we weren't exactly poor. We were making money, but we weren't making money. We were making anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Some weeks would be behind on rent. Some weeks would be chilling. We'd pay it up front. All of that. Right? But we were stuck in this middle ground where I couldn't properly afford food. I had to eat lentils and I had to eat veggies, frozen vegetables, and I'd cook up the lentils and the frozen vegetables like every day. We'd make our own bread from flour. It was sick. It was awesome. We were in the trenches. We were grinding, right? And in this, I had this whole identity of like, you know what, we're going to get rich. We're going to get super rich. We're going to get so rich because, I left our fam and like this is going to happen and this is going to happen. Boy, was I wrong, right? It was just basically torture for months on months on end. Now, I will say it was fun. It was incredibly fun. Me and my best friend in a high-rise apartment that we could barely afford, just absolutely grinding it out, trying to make money online, X, Y, and Z, right? But after that, we threw in the towel. We had about $2,000, I think it was, and we could have paid rent, or we could have been like, hey, let's end the lease. And let's go ahead, move back to our hometown, and we'll figure it out from there. And so that's what we did. We went back to the hometown. We planned, we reorganized, restructured, like, okay, cool, we're going to make $30,000 next month. This was always the thing. We're going to make $10K next month. We're going to make $20K next month, or whatever it was. The belief was there. It wasn't delusion. We knew we can do it. We know we can do it, right? That's the thing. And so I decided after that to go to Asia with a friend of mine. We'll call him S. So his name is S, right? With a friend of mine, we go to Asia, right? And this is where things kind of start crumbling down a little bit. Because, okay, first we went to Bali. And when we were in Bali, we stayed in Bali about a month. We rented out a villa on Airbnb. And, I'm now this man of God who's trying to be righteous and X, Y, and Z, trying to follow God and do everything. And, you know what? I was like, you know what? I can go have a drink. Now, here's the thing with labelizations, I'm going to call them. I have a labelization on myself, which is an extreme personality. It's not real. It's not real. Any labelization you give yourself is just a limiting belief. Let me tell you that. But we're in Bali for a month, and I decided to go out clubbing. Now, if you know Bali, Bali is the city of sin, man. It is probably one of the worst decisions I could have ever made. And I'm in the right mindset. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go sleep around with people. Yeah, I'm not going to go get crazy drunk. But here's the thing. I have one drink turns into four drinks turns into 12. I don't want to boast about how much I can drink because it's a proverb not to, because it's foolish. But I can drink a lot. That's not a good thing. And so I end up drinking heaps, man. Absolutely heaps. First night, we were chill. We got home safe. Everything was good. Everything was cool. And then I decided, you know what? Let's go out again. Nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened at all. And then what happened was I couldn't find S that night. And my phone was flat. And we had gotten so damn drunk, bro. Like, I'm telling you, we got so wasted. I did. I could barely walk. And so I think it was 3 girls. They were like trying to flirt me up, touch me up and stuff. And I just fell into it. And they grabbed me by the hand and took me under this little thing. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but that's where I fell. And after that, I started to have this little identity crisis. That like, oh, because I sinned, I can no longer, be like loved by God. I felt disgusted. I felt shamed, absolutely. don't get into that trap. Okay, don't get into the trap where it's, oh, okay, I sinned. I did the one thing that I said that I wouldn't do. And now look at me. Now God's probably disgusted by me and X, Y, and Z, right? Do not get into that trap. Because here's the thing. You say, oh, I'm never going to drink again. Guess what? The devil's going to come at you with drinks and you're going to drink again. And guess what? He's going to try and get you into that shame, into that guilt. That's the place where he has you the most by the balls, okay? So don't get into that trap. But anyways, okay, after Bali, we go to Malaysia. We stay in Malaysia for about a week in Kuala Lumpur. Still bowling, still making a little bit of decent money. It's not crazy. It's like we're not even making 10K a month, bro. We're making like a solid 2 to 3K a month throughout the whole process, just barely able to afford stuff. In Kuala Lumpur, I had to eat eggs, okay, because I was trying to diet. I was trying to get on a cut, and I had to eat just straight eggs. It was so cheap. It was like $3 for like 10 eggs, and I would just like eat those, right? After Kuala Lumpur, go to Vietnam. Now, here's the thing. Let me tell you this. In Bali, one of the nights when we were wasted, he got onto one of the locals' bikes. And he's like, oh, let me drive. Because I think it's called like Grab or something like that. Yeah, it's called Grab, Gojek, stuff like that, where it's like Uber, but for Asia, right? And so he goes onto Grab, he gets a driver, and then he tells the driver, oh, let me drive. And so he ends up crashing into a store. He's already paid for it and stuff like that. That's all good now. But this was like November 2025 or something like that. Or October 2025. And then so he gets into that crash. He injures his leg. His leg is cooked, man. Like, I won't put a picture up because that's him. But, man, was it bad, bro. And so he's still like, yeah, we're going to grind it out, whatever. In Kuala Lumpur, we're still grinding it out with his broken leg and stuff, man. Like, he's a G. He is a unit. I respect the hell out of him for that. But it got to a point where it was getting really bad. And he's like, okay, man, I think I'm going to fly back to Australia. I'm like, yep, that's cool. And so then I go to Vietnam alone. I should have called it quits, bro. Because when I go to Vietnam, again, I fall into sin. I go out, I drink a couple times, and we fall into sin again, right? And then after that, after Vietnam, I end up going to Thailand. Now in Thailand, I learned my lesson. I was broke by the time I went to Thailand. I had to stay in a hostel. Now that hurt the ego a little bit as well. I'm like, man, I don't got no villa, I don't got no nothing. And so I was in Thailand for a couple of days. I was just waiting to get to my flight to China because I couldn't afford a direct flight back to Australia. And so then I go to China, bang, and then I come back to Australia. And when I come back to Australia, because I was partying so much and because I was like being a degenerate, when I go back to Australia, the business and shit, we weren't doing the 2 to 3K a month anymore. We instead plummeted back down to zero. Now, besides the first month I got back to Australia, the first month we signed a client, it was like a 7K contract on like a couple months, right? It was for agency work to detailers. But after that, money ran dry, man. And these past couple months is where I've had this identity crisis where it's like I've just constantly been comparing myself back to the old person that I used to be. The old person who used to do OnlyFans management and the person that used to make all this money, all this, and that. And like the worst part about it is that I actually felt that I was happy in OnlyFans management. Like I actually felt happy during the process. Now, obviously I understand that type of life and that type of lifestyle doesn't lead to happiness. It's just an illusion in the moment. You're just happy in the moment, right? It's instant gratification. And so just constantly comparing myself. And this is what happens when you look back at the past, right? When you look back at the past, let me give you the story of Lot and his wife, right? God told Lot and his family not to look back from the city that they were going from. And Lot's wife looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt, right? And so when you look back on that old version of yourself, even if you're not where you want to be right now, you can't look back because looking back will make you freeze. And that's what's happened. I started over planning, I started not executing, and I started looking back on my old self and I froze and I turned into a pillar of salt. And then I got into drugs, MDMA. I got into smoking a whole bunch of weed again. I got into doing coke with the boys, getting into fights, right? And I was completely stagnant with business. Business was not looking good. It was only when I decided that I woke up one time. I woke up from my mother's couch that I'm still currently sleeping in. And I woke up with a thought. that happiness comes in the moment. Sorry, not happiness comes in the moment. Something like happiness is in the moment, and like you won't be happy chasing goals and stuff like that. Because like you think about it, whenever I was in OFM, yes, I was like happy in the moment. I guess I was with the boys, we're printing, we're making money, we're pimping chicks. Like it all sounds good on paper, right? But as I'm thinking about it, I was always constantly chasing a goal. And when you're chasing this goal, see, like, comparison is the thief of all joy. When you compare yourself, whether it's to your old self or whether it's to someone, it'll steal your joy, and it no longer becomes the work that you fall in love with, and instead it becomes that next goal. Okay, we hit 10K. Okay, let's get to 20. Okay, let's get to 30. Okay, let's get to 50. Okay, let's get to 60. Okay, let's get to 100. You're just constantly chasing. We're same with the gym. Okay, I got to this % body fat. Let's go lower. And it becomes unhealthy to a certain point. And it's only when you can truly be happy in the moment is when you will start to see the work actually be fulfilling. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe as soon as you start to see the work being fulfilling, maybe that's when you'll truly be happy. I'm talking from this as like a sort of hypocritical standpoint, because some days I'm not the happiest. I like to think I'm a happy person and that I'm constantly happy in the moment, especially now. But in this like couple months of when I was going through this, like, bro, I was just constantly comparing. It just took away all my joy to the point where I wanted to do drugs because it felt like an escape. Truly, it felt like an escape, and it didn't start off that way. It started, like, people think, oh yeah, I'm going to go do drugs to escape. Nah, it doesn't start off that way at all. You do drugs because it's fun, right? I did drugs because it quieted my mind. I did alcohol so that way I couldn't even hear my own thoughts, because I didn't want to be in the position where I could like overanalyze things and X, Y, Z, because if you can relate, then you can relate. But when you're a very self-aware person, a person that likes to reflect, and then you're in this trap of reflecting on your old version of yourself, then what's going to happen is you're going to fall into a depression. Now, for me, I think depression is a labelization. You can be depressed in the moment 100%, but you will choose to be depressed the next day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, if you do not let things go. Right? This is where it comes to like being detached from the outcome and stuff like that. It's like, you know, like everything I'm saying, you've probably already heard. You know, you probably already know this inside. Like it's never, like, no matter how many YouTube videos that you watch, it's not going to change anything. You need to learn to take action on the knowledge that you do currently possess, and just not worry about the outcome at all. Like, start worrying about the work. Start falling in love with the work. Do what you actually want to do. Now, some people will tell you, no, like, do that later. But if you do that later, you're not going to be happy in the moment. Be happy in the moment, dude. Like, think about it. Seriously, I know you've probably heard this again before, but there's probably some Pakistani kid right now with one arm, dude. And you know what? He's probably happier than you are, because he's got his one arm. And he's thanking God for his one arm that he still has, while you're not even thanking God for the two arms that you currently possess. Now, I'm not saying that to, again, comparison is the thief of all joy. You can look at it the other way around. What about the guy with the Lambo, right? But you need to learn to just be happy with you, and learn to just be happy in the moment, because happiness only comes in the moment. Right? Happiness isn't in the past. Happiness isn't in the future. The only time that you can physically be happy is right now. And so you need to do what makes you quite literally happy. I know that sounds so, I hate saying that because it sounds so corny, but it's true. Like, it's genuinely true. But take what you want with that. I'll see you guys in the next video. Subscribe, like the video, comment even, look at the description. I don't know what I'm going to put in there, but I'll see you guys in the next one.